The grandfather clock in the corner of Grandma Rose's living room struck 3, its deep chimes echoing through the tense silence. I sat quietly on the antique sofa she'd loved so much, watching my brother Marcus pace back and forth like a prosecutor ready to deliver his killing blow. Around me, our entire family had gathered for what Marcus called an emergency meeting about Grandma's estate. Mom dabbed her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, one of Grandma's last gifts to her. Dad sat rigid in his armchair, his jaw clenched. Aunt Patricia and Uncle David whispered in the corner, shooting suspicious glances my way. I'm Emma Sullivan, 29, the youngest grandchild and apparently, according to my brother, a thief. I've called everyone here today, Marcus announced, his voice dripping with fake solemnity, because something terrible has happened. Something that would break Grandma's heart if she were still with us. I fought the urge to roll my eyes. Marcus had always been theatrical, especially when he thought he had the upper hand. As the eldest grandchild and successful corporate lawyer, he was used to commanding attention, to being believed without question. 2 days ago, he continued, while doing an inventory of Grandma's belongings, I discovered something shocking. He paused for effect. The safe in her study, the one where she kept her most valuable possessions and emergency cash, had been emptied. $100,000 gone. Gasps filled the room. Aunt Patricia clutched her pearls. Mom started crying harder. But how? Uncle David demanded. Only family knew about that safe. Marcus's eyes locked onto mine, cold and triumphant. Exactly. And only one person was here regularly in Grandma's final weeks. Only one person had unlimited access to the house, to the safe. All eyes turned to me. I kept my expression neutral, even as my heart pounded against my ribs. Emma. Marcus said my name like it was something dirty. Would you like to explain where the money is? I looked at him calmly. No, I wouldn't. She stole $100,000 from Guar and Dima's safe. Marcus's voice boomed through the room. Our grandmother trusted you, Emma. She let you stay here, care for her, and this is how you repay her memory. Mom broke into fresh sobs. Emma, how could you? We should call the police, Aunt Patricia declared. No need. Marcus smiled coldly. As executor of the estate, I've already spoken to them. They're just waiting for my signal to press charges. I stood up slowly, smoothing down my simple black dress, another of Grandma's gifts. Are you finished, Marcus? Finished? I'm just getting started. Do you deny taking the money? Actually, I reached for my laptop bag. I'd like to show you all something first. Marcus scoffed. What could you possibly show us that would excuse theft? I didn't respond. Instead, I walked to the large TV mounted on the wall. A smart TV I'd helped Grandma set up last year. As I connected my laptop, I could feel Marcus's confidence wavering slightly. 3 months ago, I said quietly, Grandma asked me to install a security system. She was worried about break-ins in the neighborhood. We put cameras everywhere, including her study. Marcus's face went slightly pale. The footage backs up to a secure cloud server, I continued, typing in my password. Everything is date and time stamped. Shall we watch what really happened to the money in Grandma's safe? This is ridiculous, Marcus sputtered. You're obviously trying to cover your tracks. The video started playing. There was Marcus, clear as day, entering the study at 2:17 a.m. last Tuesday. We all watched in silence as he went straight to the safe, opened it with practiced ease, and began stuffing stacks of cash into a black duffel bag. That's not what it looks like," he stammered. I paused the video on a perfect frame of his face, illuminated by his phone's flashlight, as he counted the money. "Would you like me to play the audio?" I asked softly. "You were quite chatty with yourself about your gambling debts and how Grandma owed you for all the years you put up with her." The room erupted into chaos. Mom stopped crying and started screaming. Dad jumped up from his chair. Aunt Patricia looked like she might faint. You set me up." Marcus lunged for my laptop, but Uncle David caught him. "There's more," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "Would anyone like to know why Grandma wanted security cameras in the first place?" Marcus went completely still. "She caught you stealing before, didn't she?" I looked at my brother. "Small amounts at first. A few hundred here, 1,000 there. She came to me crying, not wanting to believe it. That's why she asked me to move in with her. Not because she needed care, but because she needed protection from you." "Liar," Marcus shouted, but his voice cracked. I opened another folder on my laptop. I have 3 months of footage, multiple incidents, plus all of Grandma's written records of the previous thefts. She documented everything. "Why? Why didn't she tell us?" Mom whispered. "Because she loved him," I replied simply. "She wanted to give him a chance to stop on his own, to be better. Instead, he waited until she died and tried to take everything at once, then blamed me for it." Marcus broke free from Uncle David and pointed at me accusingly. "You've always been jealous. Perfect little Emma, Grandma's favorite." "No," I cut him off. "I was just the only one who actually spent time with her, who listened to her stories, who helped her with her tablet so she could FaceTime her friends, who noticed when she was afraid in her own home because her grandson was stealing from her." I turned to address the whole family. "The police haven't heard from Marcus, but they've heard from me. I filed a report the morning after the theft, complete with video evidence. They're probably wondering why he's still here and not in custody." As if on cue, police sirens became audible in the distance. "You called them?" Marcus's face twisted with rage. "Your own brother?" "No," I said quietly. "You stopped being my brother the moment you tried to destroy my life to cover up your crimes. Grandma gave you every chance to make things right. This was your choice." The sirens grew louder. Marcus looked wildly around the room, but found no sympathy in the faces of our shocked family members. "Dad," he pleaded, "you can't let this happen. I'm your son." Dad stood up slowly, his face ashen. "And she's my daughter, the one you just tried to send to jail for your own theft." 2 police cars pulled up outside. Through the window, we could see officers approaching the front door. "The money's in my car," Marcus said quickly. "In the trunk. I can give it back. We can forget this whole thing." "Like you were going to forget sending me to prison," I asked. "Like you forgot all the pain you caused Grandma in her final months?" The doorbell rang. Aunt Patricia went to answer it, her legs shaking. As the officers entered, reading Marcus his rights, I thought about the last conversation I had with Grandma. She'd been sitting in her favorite chair, looking out at her garden. "Promise me something, Emma," she'd said, holding my hand. "Promise me you'll make sure the truth comes out. Not for revenge, but for justice. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their actions." I watched as they led Marcus out in handcuffs, his face a mask of fury and fear. Mom had collapsed onto the sofa, Dad holding her as she cried. Aunt Patricia and Uncle David stood in shocked silence. "Miss Sullivan?" One of the officers approached me. We'll need your statement and the security footage. I nodded, picking up my laptop. As I followed him to the door, I paused by the family photo on the wall, taken at Grandma's last birthday. Everyone smiling, Marcus's arm around my shoulders, his other hand probably already reaching for Grandma's purse. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you need to fear most. And sometimes protecting someone's memory means exposing the very things they tried to hide. The fallout from Marcus's arrest spread through our family like wildfire. By evening, my phone was flooded with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Some apologized for believing him. Others asked for details, hungry for gossip. A few demanded I drop the charges to keep this in the family. I ignored them all. Instead, I sat in Grandma's study, now a crime scene processed by police, looking at the open safe that had caused so much chaos. Inside, I found something the police had missed. A small envelope tucked into a hidden corner, addressed to me in Grandma's elegant handwriting. "My dearest Emma," it began. "If you're reading this, then either I'm gone, or the truth about Marcus has finally come out. Maybe both. There's something you need to know." The letter shook in my hands as I read. Grandma hadn't just suspected Marcus of stealing. She'd documented everything for years. Bank statements, dates, amounts. She'd even hired a private investigator who uncovered Marcus's gambling debts, failed investments, and a web of lies that went far deeper than anyone imagined. "I've changed my will," she wrote. "Marcus doesn't know. Nobody does. Everything goes to you, Emma. Not because you're my favorite, but because you're the only one who saw me as a person, not a bank account. The only one who'll use it wisely." My hands trembled. The estate wasn't just the house and the safe money. Grandma had been wealthy. Really wealthy. Old money from real estate investments, smart stock picks, and decades of careful planning. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Dad, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "Your mother's finally stopped crying," he said, settling heavily into Grandma's leather chair. "She's taken sleeping pills." Patricia and David went home. He paused, running a hand over his face. "The police found the money in Marcus's car. All of it, along with other things." "What other things?" "Forged documents, blank checks with Grandma's signature practiced on them, even a key to her safety deposit box at the bank." He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "How long did you know?" I held up Grandma's letter. She told me pieces. Asked me to install the cameras. But I didn't know everything until now. Dad read the letter slowly, his face growing paler with each line. When he reached the part about the will, he sat back, stunned. "There's more," I said quietly. "The detective called while you were with Mom. They found evidence on Marcus's phone, texts to loan sharks, plans to sell Grandma's jewelry. He wasn't just stealing cash. He was planning to clean out everything of value as soon as she died." "And I believed him," Dad whispered. "When he said you took the money, I believed him. My own daughter." "You always believed him, Dad. Every time." The truth of it hung between us. Every childhood argument, every disputed story, every time Marcus had blamed me for his mistakes, they'd always taken his side. The successful son over the quiet daughter. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus's wife. "Sophie, how could you do this to him? To us? We have children." I showed it to Dad. Interesting how she's not asking how he could steal from his dying grandmother. "Sophie called me earlier," Dad said. "She's known about his gambling for years. Helped him hide it. She thought once Grandma passed, they'd have enough money to cover his debts. Instead, they'll have legal fees and probably divorce costs, I noted. The detective mentioned they're looking into her involvement too. Dad stood up suddenly. I need to show you something. He led me to his car and drove us to his office downtown. The building was empty at this hour, our footsteps echoing in the marble lobby. In his office, he unlocked a filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. Marcus came to me 6 months ago, he said, spreading documents across his desk. He wanted to buy out my share of the family business. Said he had investors lined up. The paperwork looked perfect. I scanned the documents, my blood running cold. Dad, these signatures, they're forged. These investor names, they don't exist. I know that now. He sank into his chair. He was going to use Grandma's money to make the first payment, then probably strip the company's assets to pay his gambling debts. Did you sign anything? No. Something felt off. I told him I needed time to think. Dad's voice broke. My own son was going to destroy everything I built. And when I hesitated, he went after you instead. Just then, my phone rang, an unknown number. It was Mr. Patterson, Grandma's attorney. Emma, I've just filed the will with the court, he said without preamble. But there's been a development. Marcus's wife is contesting it, claiming your grandmother was coerced. They're demanding an emergency hearing. I put the phone on speaker so Dad could hear. They don't have grounds, Patterson continued. The will is ironclad. Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing. But what? They're claiming you manipulated her. That the security cameras were part of a plan to control her, isolate her from family. They're trying to paint you as the abuser. Dad's face hardened. Like hell they are. I need you both at my office first thing tomorrow, Patterson said. Bring any documentation you have of Marcus's activities. We're not just defending the will anymore. We're protecting Emma's reputation. After we hung up, Dad turned to me. I'm so sorry, Emma, for everything, for not seeing who he really was, for not protecting you. I looked at the forged documents on his desk, thinking of Grandma's letter in my pocket. Maybe it's time we all saw the truth, Dad, no matter how much it hurts. Because sometimes the biggest theft isn't money or jewelry or property. Sometimes it's trust. And unlike money, once trust is stolen, it can never truly be returned. The courtroom was silent except for the soft whir of the overhead fan as the security footage played on a large screen. Frame by frame, 3 months of Marcus's betrayal unfolded before the judge. Not just the final theft, but dozens of smaller incidents. Each one meticulously time-stamped, each showing my brother systematically stealing from our dying grandmother. Sophie sat behind her expensive lawyer, dressed in black like a widow, dabbing at non-existent tears. Marcus wasn't present. He was still in custody, denied bail due to flight risk after the police discovered packed bags and one-way tickets to the Cayman Islands in his office. As you can see, Your Honor, Mr. Patterson said, pausing the video, this was no isolated incident. This was a calculated pattern of elder abuse and theft. Sophie's lawyer jumped up. Objection. This video evidence was obtained without my client's husband's knowledge or consent. It's a violation of privacy. Overruled, the judge cut in sharply. Ms. Sullivan had written permission from the homeowner to install security measures. And given the evidence of prior theft, Mrs. Rose had every right to protect herself in her own home. I sat straight-backed beside Mr. Patterson, wearing one of Grandma's vintage brooches, a small silver rose she'd given me on my 25th birthday. "For my Rose," she'd said, "who blooms quietly, but beautifully." The next hour was a parade of revelations. Bank statements showing Marcus's gambling losses. Credit card bills revealing secret loans. The private investigator's report detailing how deep the deception went. Then came the surprise witness, Marcus's bookie. Yeah, he was in deep, the man testified, looking uncomfortable in his suit. Kept saying his grandmother was loaded, that he'd pay everything once she kicked it. Last month, he promised me $200,000 from her safe. Sophie's face went pale. This was news to her. The final blow came from an unexpected source, Marcus's secretary. Mrs. Sullivan often called the office, she testified, begging to speak to her grandson. Mr. Sullivan always said he was too busy. But really, he was at the casino or meeting loan sharks. Sometimes, she hesitated. Sometimes I could hear her crying on the phone. I closed my eyes, remembering those days. How Grandma would sit by her phone, waiting for calls that never came. How she'd make excuses for him, even as she asked me to install more cameras. The judge called a brief recess. In the hallway, Sophie approached me, her designer heels clicking on the marble floor. "We can still fix this," she hissed. "Drop the charges, split the inheritance. Think about my children, your niece and nephew." I looked at her calmly, like you thought about Grandma when you helped Marcus steal from her, or when you planned to contest her will with lies about me. "You don't understand," she grabbed my arm. "We need that money. The lifestyle we live, the kids' private schools. Built on theft and lies." I pulled away. "No wonder Marcus thought he could get away with anything. You enabled every bit of it." Dad appeared beside me. "Sophie, that's enough. Go back to your lawyer." She glared at us both. "You'll regret this, all of it." When court resumed, the judge didn't take long to reach her decision. "The evidence is overwhelming," she declared. Not only was Mr. Sullivan stealing from his grandmother, but he'd attempted to frame his sister for his crimes. The will stands as written. Furthermore, I'm reporting my findings to the district attorney's office for additional criminal charges. Sophie burst into tears. Real ones this time. Additionally, the judge continued, given Mrs. Marcus Sullivan's apparent involvement in the attempted fraud regarding this will contest, I'm ordering a separate investigation into her role in these events. Mr. Patterson squeezed my hand as Sophie's lawyer slumped in defeat. Afterward, in the courthouse parking lot, Mom was waiting by her car. She hadn't attended the hearing, couldn't bear to see the family's dirty laundry aired in public, she'd said. "How bad was it?" she asked quietly. "Bad enough that Sophie's probably going to be charged too," Dad answered. "The kids, they'll need support through this." "I'll help with the kids," I said. Everyone looked surprised. "What? They're innocent in all this. Someone should make sure they don't pay for their parents' crimes." Mom started crying, something she'd been doing a lot lately. "I don't understand. How did we not see what he was becoming?" "Because you saw what you wanted to see," I replied. "The successful son, the perfect family man. Even when Grandma tried to tell you something was wrong, you dismissed her as a confused old woman." "And you?" she whispered. "What did we see when we looked at you?" "Nothing, Mom." That was the problem. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and family therapy sessions. Marcus pleaded guilty to multiple charges, hoping for a lighter sentence. Sophie filed for divorce, then was arrested herself for conspiracy and fraud. The kids went to live with her sister in Connecticut. I moved into Grandma's house, my house now. The first night, I sat in her garden, surrounded by her beloved roses, and opened her safe one last time. Inside, behind where the money had been, was one final letter. My dearest Emma, by now the truth has come out. I'm sorry for the pain it must have caused you, but remember what I always said. Roses have thorns for a reason. Sometimes we need them to protect ourselves, to stand strong when others try to clip our stems. You were never second best, my darling. You were always the strongest bloom in my garden, the one who grew despite the shade others cast, the one who stayed true to her nature. The money, the house, the investments, they're tools, not treasures. Use them wisely. Build something beautiful. And remember, not all family is blood, and not all blood is family. Love always, Grandma Rose. I wiped my eyes and looked up at the stars. The same stars she and I used to watch together on nights when she couldn't sleep, worried about Marcus, but afraid to say why. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Your mother and I would like to come by tomorrow to talk. Really talk, if you're willing. I thought about it, about forgiveness and boundaries, about thorns and trust. Yes, I replied, but not in the house yet. Let's meet in the garden. Grandma always said roses make the best witnesses, because sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what's in a safe or a will. Sometimes it's the strength to stand your ground, to let truth bloom even when others try to bury it. And sometimes, like Grandma's roses, you have to weather a hard frost before you can bloom again. I pinned her brooch to my jacket and smiled. The thorns might hurt, but they also protect, and I was done letting anyone steal what was rightfully mine, whether it was money, truth, or peace of mind.